Not legend, but routine. You will not find dragons or heroic cries here, only the soft sigh of a wooden floor and the faint whisper of a night watch lantern as Edo's streets hold their breath. In the year 1702, under Shogun Tokugawa Tsuneyoshi, sometimes called the Dog Shogun for his love of animal protections, the city of Edo swelled to about 1 million souls, yet at this hour the market stalls are empty and the rooftops exhale cool air. The world of the baker is far from the poetic wanderings of Basho, whose haiku once likened the city's lanterns to fireflies caught in a jar. Instead, it is the steady rhythm of rice flour, the patient grind of the suribachi, and the steady heat of a clay kamado that define the day. The Great Fire of Meriki in 1657 still haunts the wooden townhouses, so every night a group of fire watchmen patrols the narrow alleyways, and you tuck a small bell on your belt in case the smoke ever reaches your kitchen. If these low-key details help you unwind, feel free to like, share, or leave a quiet note, perhaps a comment about the place you call home, or which soft sound lulls you most at night. May the faint glow of the lantern outside your window guide you gently toward the first chapter, where the hush of Edo welcomes you. The night has not yet given up its hold on Edo, and the city rests beneath a thin veil of darkness that clings to the sloping roofs of the nagia that line your lane. The wooden eaves, whether worn and darkened by countless seasons, seem to inhale the cold air and exhale a faint sigh that mingles with the distant murmur of the Sumida River. You step onto the uneven flagstones that have been set down by generations of craftsmen, each stone bearing the imprint of countless footsteps, the occasional crack catching the faint glow of the lanterns that hang from the eaves like tired fireflies. The lantern light trembles, its oil lamp flame flickering against the darkness as if it were a moth caught in a draft. The amber pool it casts on the stone is soft, not bright enough to chase away the night but sufficient to outline the path ahead. Somewhere farther down the street, the clink of a night watchman's metal bucket rings out, a metallic echo that has become as regular as the tide. The bucket, heavy with water, is carried on a wooden pole, its sound a reminder that even in the quiet hours the city's guardians remain vigilant, their duty prescribed by the shogunate's ordinances that demand a watchful eye over every roof and alley. A faint scent of incense drifts from a nearby temple, the smoke curling lazily from a stone lantern that has stood for decades. The incense, made from sandalwood and a touch of dried camphor, rises in thin ribbons that dissolve into the night, a quiet offering to the kami who are believed to rise before the sun. The smell is subtle, not overpowering, but it carries with it the notion that even the gods of Edo begin their day before the first light touches the rooftops. You inhale the fragrance, feeling the cool night air fill your lungs, and notice how the scent seems to settle on the damp wood of your own shop's sliding doors, as if the temple's prayers are borrowing a moment of your own quiet. Your thin linen jacket, hand-stitched by a neighbor's wife, brushes against your shoulders. The fabric is plain, its color a muted indigo that complies with the shogunate's sumptuary edicts, which forbid bright hues for common folk. The law, issued to keep the visual hierarchy of the city clear, has turned many a merchant's wardrobe into a sea of subdued blues and grays. You pull the jacket tighter, feeling the chill of a winter that has crept into the wooden walls of your shop despite the thinness of the season's frost. The cold is not sharp. It is a gentle pressure that presses against the back of your neck, reminding you that the wood of the shop, though sturdy, is still a living thing that absorbs the world's temperature. The shop itself is a modest space, its interior defined by low wooden beams that have been lacquered to protect against the humidity that rises from the river each spring. The floor is laid with tatami mats, their rushes softened by years of use, each mat bearing the faint imprint of countless kneading motions, of feet that have shuffled in and out, of the occasional spill of water that was quickly mopped away. The shoji doors, heavy sliding panels of paper stretched over wooden frames, stand closed for now, their translucent surfaces dimly illuminated by the lantern's glow. When you reach for the iron key, its cold metal feels familiar in your palm, the same key that has turned the same lock for as long as you can remember, a small ritual that marks the transition from the world outside to the world within. You turn the key, the tumblers clicking in a soft, metallic rhythm that echoes the distant clatter of the night watchman's bucket. The lock slides open with a sigh, and the shoji doors glide along their tracks, the paper whispering against the wood. A hush settles over the room, a stillness that feels almost tangible, as if the night itself has taken a breath and held it, waiting for you to fill the space with your own quiet presence. The lantern's light spills across the tatami, casting elongated shadows that move slowly as the flame flickers, each shadow a reminder of the passing hours that have yet to be counted. You pause for a moment, standing in the doorway, feeling the contrast between the cold night air that brushes against your face and the faint warmth that lingers inside the shop from the previous day's fire. The contrast is subtle, a reminder that the world is composed of opposites that balance each other, much like the rice and water that will soon become the mochi you bake for the city's early risers. Your heart steadies, matching the calm rhythm of the city that has not yet heard its own heartbeat. The streets beyond are still, the occasional rustle of a stray cat's paws on the stone the only movement, and the distant murmur of a river that seems to carry the city's secrets downstream. In this moment, the world feels small, confined to the narrow lane, the wooden shop, the lantern's glow. The upcoming work, grinding rice, heating the kamado, shaping the dough, appears as a series of deliberate breaths, each one measured, each one necessary. The night is yours, and it folds gently around you, its darkness not a void but a soft blanket that muffles the clamor of the day, allowing you to hear the quiet ticking of the old clock on the wall, its pendulum swinging with a measured, patient motion that has marked the passage of countless mornings. You step fully into the shop, the shoji doors closing behind you with a soft thud that seals you off from the street's lingering chill. The lantern's flame steadies, its amber pool now steadying the shadows into a calm, even darkness that seems to breathe with you. You place your hands on the low wooden table, feeling the smoothness of the lacquer that has been polished over the years, each stroke of polish a small act of care that mirrors the care you will take with the rice flour later. The table bears a faint ring of tea stains, a reminder of the many patrons who have paused here for a sip of warm tea before the market opens. You glance at the small wooden shelf that holds the tools of your trade. The pestle, the suribachi, the ladle, each item worn by use but still functional, each bearing the subtle marks of previous hands that have shaped dough and comforted customers. The pestle's wooden handle is smooth where your palm has rested countless times, its surface darkened by the oil of your skin. The suribachi's interior ridges, like the shells of sea creatures, catch the light in a way that makes the bowl seem alive, ready to grind the rice into a fine powder that will become the foundation of the mochi. A quiet irony settles in the back of your mind. as you consider the sumptuary edicts that dictate the colors of your clothing and the modesty of your shop's decor. The law, intended to keep the social order clear, has also given the city a certain uniformity that, in its own way, makes each small act of craftsmanship stand out more sharply against the muted background. The lantern's glow, the soft rustle of paper, the faint scent of incense, all these small details become the language through which you speak to the city, a language that does not need bright colors to be heard. You take a slow, deliberate breath, feeling the cool night air fill your lungs, then exhale, letting the breath leave your body as gently as the lantern's flame releases its light. The rhythm of your breathing aligns with the rhythm of the city's unseen heart, a pulse that will soon quicken as the first merchants begin to open their stalls, as the bells of the night watchmen fade into silence, and as the sun's first rays begin to chase away the night's veil. For now, however, the night remains, and you are alone with the quiet, the lantern, and the promise of a new day that will be built, one patient breath at a time. The darkness folds around you like a soft, familiar blanket, and you feel a calm certainty settle into your bones. The work ahead is a series of small, deliberate breaths, and the night, in its quiet generosity, offers you the space to take each one fully. The world outside may be vast, but within these walls the night is intimate, and it holds you gently, as if to say that the day will come in its own measured time. The lantern's flame steadies, the shadows settle, and you remain, breathing in the night's quiet. The clay oven, the kamado, still holds the faint orange of the fire that lingered through the night, a soft ember that glows like a tired eye beneath a heavy lid. You step toward it on the worn flagstones, the boards of the floor still damp from the night's low humidity, and feel the subtle give of the wood beneath your soles. A thin veil of steam rises from the cooling coals, curling lazily upward, as if the fire itself were exhaling a sigh after a long watch. The scent of ash mingles with the lingering perfume of incense that drifted in from the temple across the lane, a reminder that devotion and duty share the same breath in this part of Edo. You reach for the wooden pestle, its surface smoothed by decades of use, the grain of the wood still visible in the places where your palm has pressed it into the shape of a familiar rhythm. With a gentle, measured motion you coax the coals, coaxing a steady glow without allowing the flames to roar. The pestle taps the embered stones lightly, a soft percussion that echoes the distant clink of the night watchman's metal bucket, a sound that has become part of the city's nocturnal lullaby. The fire prevention laws enacted after the Great Fire of Meriki in 1657 still hover over every baker's shoulder like an unseen hand. They demand that each shop keep a water bucket within arm's reach, a simple precaution that has saved countless thatched roofs from turning to ash. You set the bucket, a sturdy, iron-capped vessel that has seen more rain than sunshine, on the stone slab beside the kamado. Its surface is dulled by years of use, the metal pitted where water has splashed and dried, leaving a faint, darkened ring that catches the low light. The bucket is heavy enough to stay where you place it, yet light enough to be lifted in an instant should a spark dare to leap. You glance at it, and a quiet smile flickers across your mind, a dry acknowledgement of the irony that a baker, whose trade is to create warmth and nourishment, must also be ever vigilant against the very heat that sustains his craft. The oven's stone floor radiates a mellow heat that seems to soften the edges of the wooden beams overhead, as if the building itself were breathing in time with the fire. You can feel the warmth on the back of your hand, a gentle diffusion that spreads through the shop, coaxing the chill from the night away. The heat settles into the tatami mats, turning the straw beneath the woven rushes a shade warmer, a subtle comfort that makes the floor feel less like a cold slab and more like a quiet companion. You lay a damp cloth, thin, cotton, the color of faded indigo, over the cooling coals. The cloth is still moist from the river water you fetched earlier, its fibers clinging to the heat, releasing a faint hiss as steam rises in a thin veil. Your father taught you this practice, a ritual passed down from a master baker in the early 1680s, when the city's streets were still narrow alleys of timber and paper. He would say that the cloth not only steadies the coals, but also guards the oven's heart, allowing the fire to rest without the sudden gasp of oxygen that could turn a gentle ember into a reckless blaze. You press the cloth gently, feeling the slight resistance of the coals beneath, and listen to the quiet crackle that follows, a sound like distant rain on a tin roof, soft enough to be a lullaby, steady enough to mark the passage of time. The crackle settles into a rhythm, each pop a tiny punctuation in the stillness of the shop. You close your eyes for a moment, letting the sound fill the space where thoughts might otherwise rush. The fire's glow mirrors the soft lanterns outside, their paper shades trembling in the night breeze, casting amber pools that flicker against the dark. In that reflected light, you sense a quiet solidarity with every other early riser who has ever tended to a hearth, whether they be a fisherman mending nets at the river's edge, a monk polishing the temple bells, or a merchant arranging silk bolts for the day's market. All of them share this unspoken pact with the night, to keep the flame alive, to keep the city breathing, to keep the promise of another day. You shift your weight, feeling the slight creak of the wooden floorboards under your feet, each board bearing the imprint of countless footsteps. The shop is small, its walls of plastered earth and paper shoji, but within its confines the world feels contained, manageable. The shoji panels, their translucent paper allowing the lantern light to filter through, create a soft diffusion that blurs the line between interior and exterior, as if the night itself were a thin veil you could step through at will. You notice a faint draft slipping through the cracks of the sliding doors, carrying with it the distant murmur of the Sumida River, a low, constant hum that reminds you of the city's relentless flow, ever present even when the streets are empty. A subtle irony settles in the back of your mind. The same river that once carried timber and firewood for the city's construction now whispers quietly beneath the night sky, its waters calm while the city above prepares for the bustle of sunrise. You think of the merchants who will soon line the market stalls, their carts laden with fresh fish and fragrant spices, their voices rising in a chorus that will soon drown out the night's hush. Yet here in this moment, the world is reduced to the soft heat of the oven, the steady glow of the coals, and the gentle rhythm of your own breathing. You turn your attention back to the kamado, watching the orange embers settle into a deeper, more stable hue. The fire's color shifts from bright orange to a muted, almost coppery tone, a sign that the heat has settled into a steady state. You run a fingertip lightly over the edge of the stone floor, feeling the residual warmth radiate through the wood, a comforting reminder that the oven is ready, that the work ahead can begin without haste. The stone, cool to the touch at first, now yields a gentle heat that spreads through your skin, coaxing a sense of calm that steadies your thoughts. A small, cracked porcelain bowl sits on the low table nearby, its glaze faded to a soft, milky white. It holds a few dried kelp strips, a modest garnish you keep for occasional flavoring, though today they will remain untouched. The bowl's crack runs like a thin river across its surface, a tiny scar that tells of a past mishap, perhaps a careless hand, perhaps a sudden jolt from a passing cart. You glance at it, and a quiet chuckle rises within you, a dry amusement at how even the most ordinary objects bear the marks of the city's bustling life. You reach for a thin wooden spatula, its handle worn smooth where your palm has rested countless times. The spatula is light, its edge just enough to scrape the soot from the oven's interior without disturbing the coals. You sweep it gently across the stone, gathering a faint layer of ash that has settled like a fine dust on the surface. The ash is soft, almost powdery, and as you lift the spatula, you see it drift down in a slow, graceful fall, disappearing into the shadows of the shop. The act feels ceremonial, a small acknowledgement of the fire's consumption, a reminder that every spark consumes and creates in equal measure. The night outside deepens, the lanterns along the street casting elongated shadows that stretch across the wooden planks of the shop's floor. The distant clatter of a night watchman's bucket, the occasional muffled footstep of a stray cat, and the soft rustle of paper shoji sliding in a gentle breeze compose a quiet symphony that underscores the stillness within. You inhale the air, cool and tinged with the faint scent of incense, and feel the breath settle in your chest, matching the slow, measured pulse of the city. You pause, allowing the moment to linger, the fire's glow painting your face in amber tones, the shadows tracing the lines of your features. The heat from the kamado seeps into your shoulders, easing the stiffness that the night's cold had left behind. You feel a quiet gratitude for this ritual, for the simple act of tending the fire, for the knowledge that each careful movement contributes to the safety of the whole neighborhood. The water bucket stands ready, the cloth lies over the coals, the embers glow steadies, everything is in its place, a modest order that feels both ancient and immediate. The fire's light flickers, casting a soft, wavering pattern on the paper walls, as if the night itself were breathing through the shop. You watch the shadows dance, each movement a reminder that even in stillness there is motion, that the world continues its quiet turning even when the streets are empty. The kamado, the heart of your shop, beats with a low, steady heat, a pulse that will sustain the rice cakes you will soon prepare, and the people who will come to taste them. You lower your hand, resting it on the cool stone of the oven's base, feeling the subtle vibration of the lingering heat. The moment stretches, a gentle pause before the day's work begins, and you allow yourself to simply be present, aware, calm. The night's hush settles around you like a soft blanket, and the fire's glow holds you in its quiet embrace, a promise that the work ahead will be met with patience and care. The warmth steadies. The sack hangs from the low wooden beam, its rough hemp twine frayed at the edges by years of use. You lift it with a practiced hand, feeling the weight settle against your forearm, a quiet reminder that the city's sustenance is measured in these modest bundles. The fibers of the sack whisper against the cool air of the shop, a soft rustle that blends with the lingering sigh of the kamado's embers. You pause a moment, eyes tracing the faint, faded kanji stitched onto the cloth, a simple label indicating comb, rice. The script is the same as the one you saw on the market stalls of Nihonbashi last week, a uniformity imposed by the shogunate to keep the flow of grain transparent and perhaps to make the merchants' ledgers easier to read. The thought passes like a breath, order in the chaos of a city that never truly sleeps. You set the sack on the low table, the wood yielding a muted thump that reverberates through the tatami beneath. The grains inside have been stored in the cellar below, where the earth keeps a steady coolness even as winter's bite presses against the wooden walls of the shop. The cellar's stone floor is damp, and the scent of mineral water rises faintly when you open the hatch, mingling with the faint aroma of incense that still lingers from the morning offering. The rice, still warm from the night's temperature, carries a faint, sweet earthiness, a scent that seems to echo the fields of the Kanto Plain, where the harvest was cut by hand under the watchful eyes of village elders. You can almost hear the distant rustle of the stalks, the soft clatter of sickles, the low murmur of farmers counting their bundles before loading them onto ox-drawn carts bound for Edo's bustling markets. Your fingers brush the top of the sack, feeling the smoothness of the polished grains against the roughness of the hemp. You pull a handful, the rice slipping through your fingers like tiny, warm beads. The grains tumble into the palm of your left hand, each one a tiny capsule of sustenance, each one a silent promise of the meals to come. You lift the handful to the light that filters through the shoji screens, watching the grains catch the amber glow of the lantern. Their surfaces are mottled with the faint specks of bran, a reminder that even in a city where sumptuary edicts dictate the modesty of clothing, the food itself retains its natural variety. You set the handful aside and reach for the suribachi, the wide, shallow grinding bowl that has rested on the low table for as long as you can remember. Its interior is pitted with ridges, each groove carved by generations of bakers to grip the rice as it is ground. The bowl's rim is darkened by years of use, a patina that tells the story of countless mornings when the city's first light found you hunched over this very vessel. You lift the suribachi, feeling the coolness of the lacquered wood against your palm, and set it gently on the tatami. The bowl settles with a soft, resonant thud, a sound that seems to echo the distant drums that once announced the shogun's arrival in Edo. The drum beats, now a memory, still linger in the rhythm of your work. You pour the rice into the bowl, the grains cascading in a soft, rustling waterfall. The sound is quiet, but it fills the room with a sense of continuity, as if each grain is a note in a long, unending melody. The rice settles among the ridges, each particle finding its place between the grooves, a tiny dance of friction and motion. You reach for the wooden yuzu, the pestle that has been handed down through your family, its surface smoothed by countless rotations of the wrist. The wood is a deep, honeyed hue, its grain visible in the lantern's glow, and its weight feels reassuring in your hand, a counterbalance to the delicate nature of the task ahead. You begin to pound, the first strike soft, as if testing the water's depth before diving in. The pestle meets the rice with a muted thump, the sound absorbed by the bowl's ridged interior. Each blow sends a faint puff of rice dust into the air, a fine white cloud that settles like a gentle snowfall upon the tatami mats. The dust clings to the low table's edge, to the corners of the shoji screens, to the surface of the kamado's stone floor, a reminder that even the smallest particles have a place in the larger tapestry of the shop. You notice the dust's delicate nature, and a quiet smile flickers in your mind. How the city's grand festivals, with their towering lanterns and roaring drums, are built upon such humble specks. The rhythm steadies, a measured cadence that mirrors the slow, deliberate steps of the night watchmen as they patrol the streets outside. Their lanterns swing in unison, casting circles of light that drift across the rooftops, and you find a strange kinship in the parallel motions, their steady tread, your steady pounding. The pestle rises and falls, each motion controlled, each impact precise. You are aware of the shogunate's fire prevention edicts, the very laws that require you to keep a bucket of water within arm's reach, and you keep a mental note of the balance between heat and moisture, between the potential for flame and the need for nourishment. The irony is quiet, almost invisible. The same regulations that keep the city safe also dictate the rhythm of your work, a subtle reminder that order and caution are woven into the very fabric of daily life. As you continue, the rice begins to change. The grains, once hard and distinct, soften under the relentless pressure, their outer husks yielding to the force of the pestle. The sound of the pounding shifts subtly, becoming a deeper, more resonant thud as the mass inside the bowl grows denser. You can feel the heat of your own breath on the rim of the suribachi, a faint warmth that seems to seep into the wood, a small, private fire that burns only for you and the rice. The air in the shop grows thicker with the scent of freshly milled rice, a sweet, nutty aroma that rises from the bowl and mingles with the lingering incense. It is a scent that speaks of sustenance, of the countless families that will sit at low tables across Edo, their mouths opening to receive the soft, chewy mochi you are preparing. You pause for a breath, the rhythm of your heart aligning with the rhythm of the pestle. The pause is brief, a moment of stillness that feels like a held note in a piece of music. You listen to the faint creak of the wooden floorboards beneath your feet, each board settling into the night's quiet as if sighing in relief at the work being done. The shop's walls, paper-shrouded and thin, allow the distant sounds of the city to filter in, a muted clatter of carts, the soft murmur of a river far below, the occasional bark of a dog from a neighboring household. The world outside continues its slow, unhurried dance, and you are a part of it, your hands shaping the rice as the city shapes its people. The grinding proceeds, slower now, each strike deliberate, each movement a meditation. You think of the proverb your mother whispered when you were a child, a hurried mochi cracks in the mouth of the eater. The words echo in your mind, a gentle admonition against haste. You feel the weight of that wisdom settle upon your shoulders, a quiet pressure that guides your hands. The rice, now a fine powder, rests in the bowl, a soft mound that glitters faintly in the lantern's light. Its surface is smooth, almost velvety to the touch, and you run a fingertip across it, feeling the fine grains slip between your skin like a whisper. You scoop a small portion of the milled rice with the wooden ladle, the utensil's lacquered surface cool against your palm. The powder falls into the ladle, a tiny cloud that settles with a soft sigh. You set the ladle aside, the rice powder waiting patiently for the next stage of its transformation. The bowl, now empty, reflects the lantern's glow, its dark interior a quiet canvas awaiting the next act. You glance at the water bucket near the kamado, its metal surface dulled by years of use, and you feel a faint gratitude for the simple tools that have kept you safe through countless seasons. The shop is still, the only sounds the occasional rustle of paper shoji in the night breeze, and the faint, rhythmic ticking of a distant temple bell marking the hour. You take a moment to stretch, feeling the muscles in your arms loosen, the tendons in your wrists release the tension of the pestle's weight. The stretch is a small, private ritual, a way to acknowledge the effort you have just expended and to prepare for the work that lies ahead. You notice a small crack in the corner of the suribachi, a faint line that runs like a vein through the wood. It is a reminder of a past fire scare, a scar that, like the one on your forearm, tells a story of survival and resilience. You turn your gaze toward the low window, where the night sky is just beginning to lighten at the edges. a pale wash of indigo giving way to the first hints of dawn. The city's rooftops, tiled and sloped, sit in quiet anticipation, their eaves catching the first cool breaths of morning. The air outside carries a faint chill, a reminder that winter has not yet fully released its grip on Edo. Inside, the warmth of the Kamado's lingering heat meets the coolness of the tatami, creating a balanced atmosphere that feels neither too hot nor too cold, but just right for the work of a baker. You place the milled rice back into its sack, the fibers of the hemp now cradling the powder as gently as a mother holds a child. The sack's weight has changed, lighter now that the grains have been transformed, yet it feels fuller in a different way, full of potential, of the promise that each particle will soon become part of a soft, chewy mochi that will warm the mouths of early risers. You tie the sack's twine with a careful knot, the rope slipping through your fingers with a soft, muted snap. The knot is tight, a small act of order in a world that often feels chaotic. You step back from the table, your feet finding the familiar pattern of the tatami's woven rush. The floor is cool beneath your soles, a grounding sensation that pulls you into the present moment. You inhale deeply, the scent of rice, incense, and faint wood smoke filling your lungs, each breath a gentle tide that rises and falls in rhythm with the city's pulse. You exhale slowly, feeling the tension melt away, the night's quiet enveloping you like a soft blanket dot in this pause. You allow the memory of the market's bustling stalls to surface, a sea of faces, the clatter of wooden carts, the shouts of fishmongers, the soft murmur of women bargaining for silk. You recall the way the rice was loaded onto bamboo baskets, the careful balance required to prevent the grains from spilling, the watchful eyes of the merchants ensuring that each sack met the shogunate's standards. Those images drift through your mind like clouds, fleeting yet comforting, a reminder that your work is part of a larger tapestry that stretches far beyond the walls of your modest shop. You turn your attention back to the suribachi, now empty, its surface smooth and dark. You run a hand along its rim, feeling the faint grain of the lacquer, the subtle imperfections that speak of years of use. You think of the baker who first introduced you to this tool, a man who served the Tokugawa shogunate and whose hands were said to be as steady as the river's flow. His legacy lives on in the weight of the pestle, in the rhythm of the grinding, in the quiet dignity of the work. You feel a quiet kinship with him, a thread that ties past and present together, unbroken by time. The night deepens, the lantern's flame flickering gently, casting soft shadows that dance across the walls. You hear the distant toll of a temple bell, its low tone resonating through the wooden beams, a reminder that time moves forward inexorably, yet each moment can be savored. You allow the sound to settle in your chest, a low hum that matches the steady beat of your heart. With the rice milled, the foundation of the day's work is set. The powder lies ready, waiting for water to bind it, for hands to shape it, for fire to temper it. You feel a quiet anticipation, a gentle excitement that rises like the first breath of morning mist over the Sumida River. The process ahead will be long, deliberate, and filled with small, mindful actions, each one a step toward the simple pleasure of offering mochi to those who will greet the day with hungry mouths and hopeful hearts. You close the sack, securing it with a fresh strip of cloth, and set it aside on the low table. The cloth's texture is soft, its fibers worn smooth by countless uses, a small comfort against the cool night air. You glance toward the kamado, its embers now a faint orange, the heat they emit a subtle reminder of the fire's ever-present potential. You place a small wooden bucket of water near the oven, its presence a quiet promise of safety, a nod to the shogunate's regulations that have kept Edo's wooden streets from turning to ash. The shop, bathed in the soft glow of the lantern, feels like a sanctuary, a place where the world outside can be held at bay, if only for a few hours, while you attend to the humble task of turning grain into nourishment. You settle into the rhythm of the night. The shallow ceramic bowl rests on the low table, its glaze dulled by years of use, the faint speckles of glaze reminding you of the rain-spattered stones that line the riverbank. You lift it with the same deliberate care you use when handling a newborn, aware that a single slip could send the clear spring water you gathered from the Sumida River the night before spilling onto the tatami. The river, once a bustling artery for timber and firewood, now moves in a quieter rhythm, its surface catching the pale glow of the lanterns that line its banks. You can still hear in the distance the low murmur of oars and the occasional splash of a fisherman's net, a reminder that even in the early hours the city never truly sleeps. You pour the water into the bowl, the sound a soft, continuous whisper, like a sigh escaping from the stone walls of the shop. The liquid settles, cool and transparent, reflecting the faint amber of the lantern outside. The temperature of the water is just enough to remind you of the night's chill without biting, a balance that feels intentional, as if the river itself has been tempered by the countless hands that have drawn from it over the centuries. You notice a tiny ripple where the water meets the bowl's rim, a fleeting disturbance that disappears as quickly as a passing thought, and you smile inwardly at the irony of such a small imperfection being the only sign of movement in an otherwise still scene. Your hand steadies, and you sprinkle the milled rice flour into the water, the fine powder falling like soft snow onto the surface. Each grain lands with a muted thud, a sound that seems to echo the distant beat of a temple drum that once marked the passage of time for the shogunate's courtiers. The flour swirls, forming delicate clouds that drift and settle, their pale hue contrasting with the clear water, creating a gentle marbled pattern that resembles the ink wash paintings you sometimes see in the market stalls. You pause, watching the patterns form, and think of the old proverb your mother whispered. Patience is the grain that makes the rice sweet. The proverb feels less like a saying and more like a quiet instruction, a reminder that haste would only turn this careful mixture into a brittle paste that would crumble under the weight of expectation. You take a wooden spoon, its handle worn smooth by the countless stirrings of previous mornings, and begin to move it through the bowl. The motion is slow, almost reverent, each turn coaxing the flour and water to meet to become one. The spoon's tip traces a gentle spiral, the water's surface rippling in response, the flour slowly thickening into a pale paste that clings to the spoon's edge. The consistency is the focus of this moment, too thin, and the dough would dissolve like a dream upon the tongue, too thick, and it would resist the shaping that lies ahead, breaking under the pressure of the pestle later. You remember the fire watchman's admonition, the one that warned that careless heat could ruin a baker's reputation, as surely as a careless spark could engulf a whole block. Though the admonition was spoken in the context of flame, its spirit lingers here, urging you to treat even the quietest elements, water, flour, patience, with the same vigilance you reserve for the ever-present threat of fire. The paste begins to gather, its surface smoothing into a uniform, almost gelatinous sheen. You lift the spoon, allowing a small amount to drip back into the bowl, watching the droplets fall like tiny pearls onto the tatami. The sound of each drop is a soft patter, a reminder that even the smallest actions leave a trace. You lower the spoon, turning it over, and notice a faint line where the spoon's edge meets the bowl, a subtle scar, a reminder of a time when a hurried stir had sent the mixture splashing onto the floor, a momentary chaos that was quickly mended with a swift sweep of the broom. The memory brings a quiet chuckle, a dry, understated amusement at the way the simplest misstep can feel monumental in the hush of pre-dawn. You set the bowl down, the ceramic cool against the wooden table, and let the paste rest for a heartbeat. In that pause, the shop seems to inhale, the wooden beams creaking ever so slightly as they settle, the lantern's flame flickering in a rhythm that mirrors the slow, steady beat of your own heart. The silence is punctuated only by the distant clink of a night watchman's metal bucket, a sound that drifts through the narrow lane and settles like a soft echo against the plastered walls. The world outside remains wrapped in a thin veil of night, the sky a deep indigo that matches the muted color of your own kimono, a compliance with the shogunate's sumptuary edicts that keep the city's palate modest and unassuming. You tap the bowl lightly, the ceramic resonating with a faint, hollow tone, as if confirming that the mixture has reached the right stage. The sound is barely audible, yet it carries a weight, a quiet affirmation that the dough is ready to move forward. You notice the faint scent of the water, a clean, riverine aroma that mingles with the subtle earthiness of the rice flour, creating an olfactory balance that feels both grounding and uplifting. It is a scent that reminds you of the early mornings when you would stand at the river's edge, watching the mist rise off the water, the world still half asleep, and feeling a quiet kinship with the flow of the river itself, steady, patient, ever present. You consider the bowl's glaze, the way it has faded over time, each chip and wear a testament to the countless mornings spent here. The bowl has seen the rise and fall of seasons, the occasional flood that raised the Sumida's waters higher than usual, the quiet winters when the river froze in patches, and the soft spring rains that left a lingering dampness on the wooden floorboards. In each of those moments, the bowl has remained a constant, a vessel for transformation, much like the city itself, which endures the edicts, the fires, the taxes, and the subtle shifts of power without losing its core. The thought brings a gentle humility, a sense that you are part of a larger continuum, a small but essential link in the chain that sustains Edo's daily rhythm. You lift the spoon once more, this time to smooth the surface of the paste, spreading it evenly across the bowl's interior. The motion is almost meditative, each pass a quiet breath, each glide a soft exhale. The paste settles into a thin, even layer, its pale hue catching the lantern's light in a way that makes it appear almost luminous, as if the moon itself had been poured into the bowl. You pause, allowing your eyes to rest on the surface, the stillness of it reminding you of a pond at dawn, its water undisturbed, reflecting the sky above. In that reflection, you see the faint outline of the lantern's flame, a tiny sun captured within the bowl, a reminder that even in the quietest moments, there is a spark of warmth waiting to be kindled. You think of the fire watchmen again, their lanterns swinging in the night, their footsteps echoing on the stone streets, their vigilance a quiet chorus that keeps the city safe. Their presence is a paradox, a reminder that safety often comes from the awareness of danger. You feel a subtle irony in the fact that the very act of preparing food, a humble, nourishing task, requires the same careful attention that a watchman gives to a potential blaze. Both are acts of stewardship, both demand a steady hand and a calm mind. The thought settles into you like a soft weight, grounding you further in the present, anchoring you to the rhythm of the shop. You set the spoon aside, its wooden handle resting against the bowl's rim, and you lean back, allowing the quiet of the shop to envelop you. The air carries a faint trace of incense you lit earlier, its smoke curling lazily toward the ceiling, a silent offering to the kami who watch over hearth and home. The scent mingles with the coolness of the water and the subtle aroma of the rice flour, creating a layered fragrance that feels both protective and inviting. It is a scent that tells a story without words, a story of preparation, of anticipation, of the quiet labor that will soon bring nourishment to the city's early risers. You glance at the low table, its surface worn smooth by countless bowls and plates, its wood darkened by the oil of countless meals. The table has supported the weight of many a merchant's ledger, the spill of a teacup, the clatter of a bamboo ladle. It has been a silent witness to the ebb and flow of Edo's market life, to the rise of the shogunate's tax collection edicts, to the subtle shifts in fashion dictated by sumptuary laws. In this moment, the table holds only the bowl and the paste, a simple tableau that feels like a pause before a symphony, a breath held before a sigh. You let your thoughts drift, not to the bustling market that will soon fill the streets, nor to the distant river that carries the city's commerce, but to the present texture of the paste, the cool smoothness of the water, the fine grain of the flour. You feel the subtle tension in your shoulders ease, the rhythm of your breathing aligning with the slow, steady pulse of the lantern's flame. The world outside remains wrapped in pre-dawn shadows, the city's heartbeat slow and measured, as if it, too, is waiting for the first bite of mochi to break the silence finally. You lift the bowl, cradling it gently as if it were a newborn, and you set it back on the table, the ceramic settling with a soft, reassuring thud. The paste rests ready for the next step, its surface smooth and patient, awaiting the shaping and pounding that will transform it into the soft, chewy mochi that will soon be offered to samurai retainers, market vendors, and humble townsfolk alike. The quiet of the shop holds you, the gentle weight of anticipation settling into your bones, a calm promise that the work you have begun will soon become sustenance, and that the rhythm of your hands will continue to echo the steady cadence of Edo's early morning. The moment lingers, a soft, the charcoal lamp flickers, its amber pool spreading a soft circle across the low wooden table where the dough rests. The light trembles like a quiet heartbeat, casting gentle shadows that dance on the grain-finished surface of the board. You reach for the small lacquered ladle, its dark sheen worn smooth by years of handling the same paste, and scoop a modest portion of the pale dough. The weight of the ladle is reassuring, a familiar counterbalance to the coolness of the night air that still lingers at the edge of the shop. As the ladle lifts, a faint scent of steamed rice rises, mingling with the lingering incense that has settled into the paper walls. You set the ladle down with a soft clink, the sound barely louder than a distant temple bell, and turn your attention to the board. A thin veil of rice flour lies spread across the board, its powdery surface catching the lamp's glow and turning it into a muted snow. You sprinkle a little more, the grains falling like quiet rain, each speck a promise that the dough will not cling to the wood. The flour is fine, the result of the careful grinding you performed earlier, and it settles into the board's natural grooves, filling the tiny imperfections left by countless previous batches. You feel a faint smile tug at the corner of your mouth, a dry acknowledgement that even the most humble tools acquire a history of their own, their wear patterns telling stories that no scroll could record. Your hands, still warm from the lingering heat of the kamado, cup the dough gently. The paste yields with a soft resistance, a pliant mass that remembers the water you added hours before. You press the dough between your palms, feeling its coolness against the heat of your skin, a subtle contrast that reminds you of the city's own rhythm, cold mornings softened by the day's labor. The dough flattens under your touch, spreading into a disc no larger than a palm, its surface smooth and slightly glossy, reflecting the lamp's light like a tiny moon caught in a still pond. You turn the disc over, the underside revealing a faint imprint of the wooden board's grain, a pattern that resembles the ripples of the Sumida River after a gentle rain. The texture is delicate, yet it holds together, a testament to the balance you achieved between water and flour. You repeat the motion, forming another disc, then another, each one emerging from the bowl like a quiet offering. The rhythm of your hands is steady, echoing the measured steps of the night watchmen who have just completed their rounds. Their lanterns, now dimmed, had left a faint imprint of light on the shop's floor, and you can almost hear the soft clack of their wooden sandals as you shape each piece. The discs settle onto bamboo leaves that have been laid out on the board. The leaves are still damp from the morning's humidity, their green veins faintly visible through the thin, translucent surface. They carry a faint scent of the nearby tea houses, where patrons sip matcha while watching the sunrise over the castle's hill. The aroma is subtle, a reminder that the city's flavors are interwoven, each taste a thread in a larger tapestry. As you place each disc, you notice a small scar on your forearm, a pale line that catches the lamp's light. It is the memory of an accident with a hot kettle many seasons ago, a reminder of the thin line between care and carelessness. You run a thumb over the scar, feeling the raised tissue, and the slight sting is a quiet affirmation of resilience, of the body's capacity to heal and continue. The assembled discs form a modest constellation on the bamboo leaves, each one waiting for the next phase of transformation. They sit in quiet patience, their smooth surfaces reflecting the lamp's glow like tiny moons awaiting the tide. You step back for a moment, allowing your eyes to rest on the arrangement, and you notice how the light catches the edges of the discs, turning them into soft halos. The sight is calming, a visual echo of the city's own lanterns lining the narrow alleys, each one a small beacon against the night's darkness. A soft rustle of paper draws your attention to the sliding shoji doors, where a gentle breeze has slipped in, carrying with it the faint scent of incense and the distant murmur of the river. The night's chill brushes against the exposed wood, and you feel the temperature shift, a reminder that the world outside continues its slow, unhurried cycle. You pull the doors a fraction wider, allowing the cool air to mingle with the warm interior, the contrast creating a subtle, comforting tension that settles like a sigh. You reach for a small bamboo brush, its slender stalk polished smooth by years of use, and lightly dust the tops of the discs with a final whisper of rice flour. The brush moves with a deliberate slowness, each stroke a quiet caress that prevents the dough from sticking together as they await the pounding that will soon follow. The flour settles like a fine mist, a veil that both protects and prepares, echoing the way the city's mist clings to the rooftops at dawn, softening the harsh lines of the wooden eaves. The lamp's flame flickers once more, casting a brief, wavering shadow across the board. In that fleeting darkness, you glimpse the faint crack in the wooden mortar you will later use, a souvenir of a past fire scare that still bears the memory of smoke and ash. The crack is a small imperfection, yet it tells a story of vigilance, of the shogunate's fire prevention edicts that have shaped every baker's routine. You think of the water bucket you placed near the kamado, its presence a silent promise that the flames will be kept in check, that the city's fragile wooden structures will endure another night. You pause, allowing the quiet of the shop to settle around you like a soft blanket. The lamps glow, the scent of rice and incense, the cool breath of the night air, all combine into a gentle tableau that feels both timeless and immediate. Your breath slows, matching the rhythm of the city's distant bells, and you feel a quiet steadiness settle in your chest, as if the very act of shaping these simple discs has aligned you with the pulse of Edo itself. The final disc rests in the center of the board, its edges slightly uneven, a reminder that perfection is not the goal here. It is the care, the intention, the quiet dedication that matters. You glance at the lantern outside, its light now a faint orange against the dark sky, and you sense that the night is holding its breath, waiting for the next step in this unhurried ritual. The mochi discs, humble as they are, carry within them the promise of nourishment, of comfort, of a day that will begin with a soft bite and end with a satisfied sigh. You lower your hands, feeling the cool wood beneath your fingertips, and let the silence linger a moment longer, allowing the calm to settle like ash after a fire. In this stillness, the world feels small, the work deliberate, and the night folds gently around you, a quiet You lift the wooden pestle, its smooth lacquered surface cool beneath your palm, and feel the familiar weight settle into your forearm like a quiet promise. The mortar at the center of the shop is an heirloom, its dark heart of seasoned camphor wood scarred by a faint crack that runs like a river of memory across its side. The fissure is a reminder of a fire that once licked the eaves of a neighbor's shop, a reminder that the shogunate's fire prevention edicts, born from the ashes of the Great Fire of Meraki, are never far from the back of a baker's mind. You set the pestle down for a moment, listening to the low hum of the night watchman's bells fading into the distance, their rhythm a metronome that steadies the pulse of the city even as the world outside remains hushed. The first strike lands with a soft thud, a sound that reverberates through the mortar's hollow cavity and into the wooden beams above, as if the shop itself were exhaling. Each subsequent blow follows, deliberate and measured, echoing the cadence of the shogun's edicts being read aloud in the palace courts years ago. The rhythm is not hurried. Haste would only turn the tender dough into a brittle paste, much as a careless spark could turn a modest shop into a blaze that swallows whole neighborhoods. You notice how the lamp's amber glow flickers against the lacquer, casting shadows that dance like tiny lanterns on the walls, a quiet theater for the ritual that has been performed in this very space for generations. The mochi discs, once cool and firm on the bamboo leaves, now begin to soften under the steady pressure. Their surface, initially matte, slowly gains a subtle sheen, catching the light like the polished stones that line the gardens of Edo's aristocratic estates. The transformation is gradual, each pound coaxing the rice from a rigid block into a pliable mass that yields without breaking. You think of the proverb your mother whispered in the kitchen's early mornings. A hurried mochi cracks in the mouth of the eater. The pestle's weight presses down, not to force but to guide, reminding you that patience is the true catalyst of softness. A faint scent of toasted rice rises with each impact, mingling with the lingering incense that still curls lazily from the stick you lit before dawn. The aroma is modest, neither overpowering nor absent, just enough to fill the room with a comforting veil that seems to hush the world beyond the shoji doors. You catch a whisper of irony in the fact that the same incense, meant to honor the kami of hearth and home, also serves as a subtle reminder that fire, while essential, is a double-edged companion. The smoke drifts lazily, settling on the low-hanging beams, and you watch it dissolve into the night air, as inevitable as the rivers flow beneath the city's bridges. Your breath settles into a rhythm that matches the pounding, slow and even, each inhalation drawing in the cool night air that slips through the cracks of the paper doors, each exhalation releasing a faint mist that clings briefly to the wooden floorboards. The floor, worn smooth by countless footsteps of bakers, night watchmen, and occasional curious children, creaks softly under the weight of the pestle, a reminder that even the most solid foundations bear the marks of time. You notice a small, almost imperceptible wobble in the mortar's base, a relic of an old repair after a past fire scare. The wobble is harmless, yet it adds a subtle, almost playful note to the otherwise solemn ritual. The night watchmen have now completed their rounds, their lanterns dimming one by one as they retreat to their quarters. Their absence leaves a gentle quiet that settles over the shop like a soft blanket, allowing the sound of the pestle to become the dominant voice in the space. The low thud of wood against wood is accompanied by the occasional sigh of the coals in the kamado, still warm from the previous night's fire, their ember glow a muted backdrop to the work at hand. You glance toward the oven, its stone floor still radiating a mellow heat that seems to soften the edges of the wooden beams, as if the building itself were breathing in tandem with your own subtle irony surfaces as you consider the weight of the pestle. It is heavy enough to shape the dough, yet light enough to be lifted without strain, much like the shogunate's regulations, intended to guide without crushing. The mortar's lacquer, once glossy, now bears the faint patina of countless repetitions, each layer of wear a silent record of mornings and evenings spent in quiet dedication. You run a thumb over the surface, feeling the smoothness give way to a rougher grain where the pestle has struck most often, a tactile map of the work that has been done here. The dough, now a unified mass, begins to take on a glossy sheen that reflects the lamp's amber light, turning the once pale paste into a soft, almost translucent sphere. You pause, wiping a thin line of sweat from your brow with the back of your hand, noting how the night air's chill contrasts with the lingering warmth of the oven. The sweat is not a sign of exertion, but of the body's quiet acknowledgement of the effort, a reminder that even in the most tranquil of tasks, the body participates in the rhythm. The lamp's flame flickers, casting a gentle, wavering glow that makes the mochi appear as tiny moons suspended in a night sky, each one waiting to be offered to the early patrons who will soon arrive. You think of the river that runs beside the city, the Sumida, its waters once bustling with timber and trade, now a quiet mirror that reflects the sky's first light. The river's steady flow is a counterpart to your own steady work. Both move inexorably forward, each ripple a small echo of the other's motion. The water you used earlier, drawn from the river under the cover of night, still lingers in the memory of its coolness, a reminder that the city's lifeblood runs beneath the streets, unseen but essential. The river's whisper seems to echo in the soft thud of the pestle, a distant murmur that blends with the rhythm of your hands-a faint, almost imperceptible creak comes from the shoji doors as a draft slips through the paper lattice, bringing with it a whisper of the outside world, a distant chant from a temple bell marking the hour, the soft rustle of a silk kimono being adjusted by a passerby, the muted clatter of a wooden cart on the cobblestones. These sounds, though far away, infiltrate the shop's quiet interior, reminding you that the city is alive even in its most subdued moments. The bell's resonance, low and resonant, seems to synchronize with the low thud of the pestle, as if the city itself were keeping time with your work. You allow your mind to wander briefly to the stories your father told you, of a master baker in the early 1680s who taught you the importance of a steady hand and a patient heart. He would speak of the day when a sudden gust had knocked a lantern into the flour sack, and how the baker's quick reflexes had saved the shop from a fire that could have consumed the entire block. That anecdote, told with a dry smile, still lingers as a quiet lesson. Vigilance and calm are the twin pillars that keep the hearth safe. The memory of that story settles into the rhythm of your pounding, a subtle undercurrent that steadies your focus. As the mass of mochi becomes more cohesive, you feel a gentle surrender, a quiet acknowledgement that even the hardest things can become pliable under consistent, patient effort. The dough yields, its texture smoothing into a uniform, elastic sphere that seems to hold within it the quiet hopes of the day ahead, of customers who will seek comfort in its chew, of a city that will continue its endless cycle of sunrise and sunset. The mortar, now bearing the imprint of countless strikes, seems to exhale a soft sigh, as if relieved that its purpose has been fulfilled for the moment. You set the pestle aside, its weight now a familiar presence at your side, and step back to observe the finished mochi. The lamp's glow catches the glossy surface, turning each piece into a small, luminous orb that rests peacefully on the bamboo leaf. The quiet of the shop is punctuated only by the occasional creak of the wooden floor and the distant murmur of the river, both serving as gentle companions to the stillness that follows the ritual. The night watchman's bells, now silent, have left a lingering lullaby that seems to linger in the air, a soft echo that will fade only as the first light of dawn begins to creep over the rooftops. You take a moment to breathe deeply, inhaling the mingled scents of rice, incense, and faint wood smoke, feeling the cool night air brush against the back of your neck through the thin paper doors. The breath you draw is steady, each inhalation a quiet affirmation of the work completed, each exhalation a release of the effort expended. The rhythm of your heart aligns with the lingering warmth of the kamado, the faint ember glow a reminder that fire, though subdued, still lives within the walls of the shop. In this pause the world feels balanced, the weight of the pestle, the crack in the mortar, the soft glow of the lamp, all elements in harmonious accord. The night outside deepens, the moon a pale disk reflected in the still waters of the Sumida, its light filtered through the paper shoji, casting delicate patterns on the tatami. The city's pulse slows, the early bustle giving way to a gentle hush that settles over the streets like a soft blanket. You feel the quiet gratitude that comes from a day's work done with care, a gratitude that is not loud or boastful but a quiet, steady hum within your chest. The ritual of pounding, simple yet profound, has connected you to the generations of bakers before you, to the edicts that shape the city, and to the subtle flow of the river that sustains it, all with the mochi now ready. You turn your attention to the next steps that will follow when the sunrise paints the sky in soft pinks. For now the mortar rests, the pestle lies still, and the shop holds a calm that is both a conclusion and a prelude. The night embraces you, steady and serene, and you settle into the quiet rhythm of the moment, feeling the world breathe in unison with you. The gentle stillness settles like the first pink glimmer threads itself through the paper windows, a shy ribbon of light that slips past the thin washi and settles on the tatami like a whispered promise. It is not yet the full blaze of sunrise. Rather, it is a tentative breath that lifts the night's cool veil just enough for the world to notice that a new day is beginning. You stand still, the soft rustle of your indigo kimono the only sound that competes with the faint sigh of the wind moving through the narrow alley. The light catches the edge of the wooden tray on which you have arranged the freshly pounded mochi, turning each rounded piece into a tiny, pale moon that seems to pulse with its own quiet rhythm outside. The bakers of the nearby fish market are already beginning to unfurl their stalls. Their wooden frames creak as they are lifted, the sound a low, steady percussion that blends with the distant murmur of the Sumida River, which still carries the faint echo of night watchmen's boots on stone. The market's shouts are muffled by the lingering mist that clings to the streets, a dampness that leaves a faint taste of earth on the back of your throat. You can see the silhouettes of the fishmongers, their hands moving with practiced ease, arranging glistening catches on bamboo racks. Their voices, though hushed, carry the same purpose that drives you, to offer something simple, honest, and sustaining to the people who will soon flood the streets. Edo's streets are known for their early bustle, especially after the edicts of 1701 that required merchants to open at sunrise so that the shogunate's tax collection could run smoothly. The law, written in stern black ink on a scroll that hangs in the back of the shop, is a reminder that the city's rhythm is not merely a matter of habit, but also of decree. Yet the law does not dictate the softness of a mochi's texture nor the quiet pleasure of its taste. Those are left to the hands that shape it, to the patience that steadies each movement, and to the small, almost invisible moments like this one, when the world is still and the heart can listen. You light a small incense stick, its charcoal base crackling faintly as the fragrant smoke curls lazily upward. The scent is a blend of sandalwood and a hint of camphor, a scent that has been used for generations to honor the kami who protect hearth and home. The smoke drifts across the tray, touching each piece of mochi with a veil of amber that seems to soften the edges of the wood beneath. It is a quiet tribute, an offering of scent as much as of sustenance, and the aroma mingles with the lingering scent of rice, creating a comforting veil that seems to hush the world just a little more. The incense's glow adds a soft, amber halo to the already pale moons, making them appear as if they were lit from within. The tray rests on a low table, its legs slightly uneven from years of use, each wobble a reminder of the shop's age and the countless hands that have steadied it before yours. You arrange the mochi pieces in neat rows, each one a small moon waiting to be devoured, their surfaces glossy from the final pounding, reflecting the lamp's amber light like tiny mirrors. The rows are not perfectly straight. A slight irregularity here and there gives the arrangement a human touch, a subtle acknowledgement that perfection in this world is a quiet myth. The mochi's scent, warm and slightly sweet, rises gently, inviting the senses to settle into a calm anticipation. You watch as the city awakens, each movement a soft brushstroke on the canvas of dawn. A distant bell from a temple begins to toll, its tone low and resonant, marking the hour with a measured cadence that seems to synchronize with the slow beating of your own heart. The bell's sound travels through the narrow lanes, over the wooden roofs, and into the shop, where it settles on the tatami like a gentle vibration. It is a reminder that time moves forward, but not with haste. It moves with the deliberate pace of a river that knows its own depth. A faint breeze slips through the shoji screens, carrying with it the coolness of the night and the faint, salty tang of the river. It brushes against the paper, causing it to flutter ever so slightly, a soft rustle that sounds like the turning of a page in an old book. The breeze also carries the scent of distant tea houses, where patrons will soon be sipping matcha, their conversations low and measured, their eyes half closed in contemplation. The scent of tea mingles with the incense and the rice, creating a layered perfume that settles into the corners of the shop, filling the space with a sense of quiet hospitality. You think of the edicts that require merchants to open at sunrise, and of the shogunate's tax collectors who will soon make their rounds, counting the rice, the fish, the silk, and the mochi. The thought is not burdensome. It is simply part of the fabric that weaves the city together. The tax collectors, the bakers, the fishmongers, the samurai and their retainers, all are threads in a tapestry that stretches across Edo, each contributing its own color, however muted, to the whole. The sumptuary laws that dictate the indigo of your kimono also dictate the modesty of the shop's decor, the plainness of the wooden beams, the simplicity of the paper walls. Yet within that modesty, there is a richness that cannot be measured in gold or silk, a richness that lives in the quiet moments of preparation, in the soft glow of a lantern, in the gentle rise of a sunrise. The first customers will soon arrive, their footsteps echoing on the wooden floorboards, their breath forming small clouds in the cool morning air. You can already hear the soft murmur of their voices, the polite greetings, the rustle of their own garments as they step inside. The shop will fill with the low hum of conversation, the occasional clink of a bamboo box being opened, the faint sound of a wooden ladle scraping against a bowl. All of these sounds will blend together, creating a symphony of ordinary life that is, in its own way, profound. You pause, taking a slow, deliberate breath, feeling the cool air fill your lungs and then release it in a steady exhale. The breath carries with it the scent of incense, rice, and river, and as you release it, you feel a gentle connection to the city outside, to the river that never ceases its flow, to the people who will soon cross the threshold of your shop. The moment stretches, not in length but in depth, as if time itself has softened, allowing you to linger in this quiet interlude before the day fully awakens. The morning settles, gentle and unhurried, inviting you to welcome the day's first patrons with a calm heart and steady hands. The light grows brighter, the pink glimmer deepening into a warm amber, and the city's pulse quickens just enough to signal that the world is ready to move forward. Yet within the walls of your shop, the rhythm remains measured, the fire's lingering warmth a quiet companion, the mochi waiting patiently on its tray. You stand there, a silent steward of tradition, feeling the weight of history settle lightly upon your shoulders, as light and shadow dance together on the paper walls. In this soft, unfolding dawn, you find a quiet contentment, knowing that the day's work will be carried out with the same deliberate care that has guided you through countless mornings before. The sunrise continues its slow ascent, and you remain rooted in the present, breathing in the wooden floor beneath your feet still bears the faint imprint of the night watchman's boots, their soles softened by the night's dampness. You hear the soft rustle of the shoji sliding open as a small group of retainers steps into the shop, their presence a quiet ripple in the stillness. Their sandals whisper against the tatami, each step a measured note in the morning's first melody. The lacquer on their armor catches the dim glow of the charcoal lamp, reflecting a muted sheen that seems almost reluctant to announce their arrival. You notice the way their sleeves are cinched just enough to satisfy the shogunate's sumptuary edicts, the same modest indigo that colors your own jacket, a reminder that even those who serve the shogun must bow to the same regulations that bind the common baker. Their faces are set, the expression of men accustomed to duty, yet a faint smile lingers behind the lacquered masks, a subtle acknowledgement of the craft that awaits them. You greet them with a low bow, the motion smooth and practiced, the fabric of your kimono rustling like dry leaves. The retainers respond in kind, their heads lowering in a synchronized gesture that feels almost ritualistic, as if the act of bowing itself were a prayer to the kami of commerce. You reach for the bamboo box that rests on the low table, its lid sealed with a thin strip of rice paper, each piece of mochi nestled within like tiny moons cradled by night. The box is simple, its surface worn by years of handling, the bamboo fibers darkened by the smoke of countless mornings. You lift the lid and the scent of freshly pounded rice rises, mingling with the lingering incense that still clings to the air, a faint perfume that seems to soften the edges of the room's wooden beams. The retainers take the box with reverent hands, their fingers brushing the smooth bamboo, a contact that feels both practical and ceremonial. You watch as they examine the mochi, their eyes briefly scanning the uniform roundness of each piece, the glossy sheen that reflects the lamp's amber light. In that moment, the world contracts to the simple exchange of food for favor, a transaction that has been repeated countless times across Edo's bustling streets. You recall the old proverb your mother whispered, a hurried mochi cracks in the mouth of the eater, and you feel a quiet satisfaction that your careful pacing has yielded a product worthy of the shogun's retainers. The irony is gentle. These men who wield swords and enforce law now receive a soft, pliant cake that will dissolve on their tongues, a reminder that even the most hardened can be soothed by something as humble as Rice a street vendor approaches next, his wooden cart laden with glistening river fish, the silver scales catching the early light like tiny mirrors. He leans on his cart, the wood creaking softly under his weight, and offers a trade, a piece of sweetened bean paste in exchange for a few of your mochi. The barter is quiet, the words spoken in low tones, the exchange a silent conversation that has no need for grand gestures. You accept, noting the bean paste's deep red hue, the way it clings to the wooden spoon he hands you, a small reminder of the city's love for sweet flavors that balance the salt of the sea. The vendor's smile is thin, his eyes scanning the shop as if measuring the risk of the trade, yet there is a hint of respect in his gaze, an acknowledgement that your mochi are a valued commodity in this early hour. The sound of a distant temple bell drifts through the open shoji, its resonant tone marking the hour with a measured, almost meditative cadence. The bell's vibration seems to settle the air, a low hum that blends with the soft clatter of the vendor's cart wheels on the stone path outside. You listen to the rhythm, feeling the pulse of the city align with the beat of the bell, each toll a reminder that time moves forward, indifferent to the worries of bakers and samurai alike. The bell's echo reaches the retainers, who pause for a moment, their faces softening as the sound reverberates through the shop, a subtle reminder that even the most disciplined must listen to the world's larger rhythms. The market stalls beyond your doorway begin to fill, the early bustle of Edo unfurling like a slow tide. Voices rise in a gentle murmur, the low hum of conversation punctuated by occasional laughter that seems to ripple through the air like steam from a hot tea kettle. The scent of fresh fish, soy sauce, and the faint tang of pickled vegetables mingles with the lingering aroma of rice and incense, creating a tapestry of smells that is both comforting and slightly overwhelming. You watch as the crowd moves, each person a small brushstroke on the canvas of the morning, their steps measured, their eyes scanning the stalls for the goods they need. The city's early energy is palpable, yet it never feels chaotic. It is a controlled, almost choreographed dance that reflects the shogunate's insistence on order. A young woman in a modest kimono approaches, her hair bound in a simple knot, a basket of woven reeds slung over her arm. She pauses at the threshold, her eyes taking in the sight of the mochi arranged on the low table. She bows lightly, her voice barely above a whisper as she asks for a few pieces to take home for her family's breakfast. You hand her a small portion, wrapped in a piece of rice paper, the paper's texture soft against her fingertips. She thanks you with a smile that is both grateful and weary, a reminder of the countless mornings she has faced, the same way you have faced the quiet labor of preparing rice cakes. The exchange is brief, but it carries the weight of a household sustenance, a small act of generosity that sustains the rhythm of daily life. A child, no older than 6, darts into the shop, his small feet pattering on the tatami with an eager rhythm. He clutches a wooden toy shaped like a koi, its painted scales bright against the muted tones of the shop. He looks up at the mochi with wide eyes, his curiosity evident in the way his breath quickens. You offer him a single piece, the mochi warm from the recent pounding, its surface still glossy from the lamp's light. He takes it with both hands, his cheeks flushing as he bites into the soft cake, the texture yielding gently under his teeth. The child's laughter is soft, a sound that seems to lift the weight of the morning's responsibilities, a reminder that even in a city governed by strict edicts, moments of simple joy persist. The retainers, having taken their share, turn to leave, their steps now measured as they retrace the path they came. Their departure is marked by the soft click of their sandals against the wood, a sound that fades into the background hum of the market outside. As they exit, you notice a small scar on the back of one of their hands, a faint line that tells a story of past labor, perhaps a reminder that even those who enforce law are not immune to the small injuries of daily life. You watch them disappear into the early light, their silhouettes merging with the shadows cast by the lanterns that still flicker in the street. The vendor with the fish cart lingers a moment longer, his eyes scanning the shop as if ensuring that the trade was fair. He nods politely, a gesture that feels both businesslike and courteous, then pushes his cart forward, the wheels turning with a steady, rhythmic creak. The sound of his departure blends with the distant murmur of the market, the city's heartbeat growing louder as more merchants open their stalls, the scent of fresh bread and simmering broth beginning to drift through the alleys. You feel the subtle shift in the air, the transition from the quiet intimacy of the night to the collective energy of the day's commerce. You return to the low table, where the remaining mochi sit in neat rows, each piece a small moon waiting to be claimed. The charcoal lamp's flame flickers gently, casting a soft amber glow that makes the rice cakes appear almost luminous. You notice a thin film of condensation on the glass of the lantern outside, the night's humidity leaving its mark on the world beyond the shoji. The shop feels alive, its wooden beams breathing in rhythm with the city's pulse, the scent of incense still lingering like a quiet promise. You straighten the bamboo box, placing it back on the shelf where it belongs, the rice paper strip now slightly crumpled from handling, a small testament to the morning's activity. The quiet of the shop settles once more, the occasional creak of the floorboards the only reminder that life continues within these walls. You take a moment to inhale deeply, the air cool and scented with rice, incense, and the faint trace of the river's mist that still clings to the night's memory. The world outside moves forward, the market stalls filling, the river flowing, the city's rhythm steady and unhurried. Inside, you feel a gentle gratitude for the exchange that has taken place, for the way a simple rice cake can bridge the worlds of samurai, vendors, and children alike. The day's first customers have come and gone, leaving behind a quiet echo of their presence, a soft imprint on the fabric of your morning. You set the charcoal lamp aside, its flame now reduced to a soft ember, and you allow the lingering warmth to seep into your hands. The shop, bathed in the early light, feels like a sanctuary, a place where the ordinary becomes extraordinary through the care you give each piece of mochi. The subtle irony of serving those who wield power with a humble cake does not escape you, but it rests lightly, like a feather on the back of your neck, unnoticed yet present. You straighten the tatami mats, smooth the folds of the shoji screens, and you feel the rhythm of the city aligning with your own breathing, slow and steady. As the sun climbs higher, casting longer shadows across the wooden floor, you pause at the doorway, looking out onto the street where the market's chatter grows louder. The world beyond your shop is alive with activity, yet within these walls a calm persists, a quiet that will carry you through the rest of the day. You turn back inside, the scent of incense still faint, the taste of rice lingering on your tongue, and you settle into the gentle flow of the morning, ready for whatever the next customer may bring. The shop remains a quiet harbor amid Edo's bustling tide. The sun climbs higher, its amber light spilling through the shoji screens and laying a thin, warm veil over the wooden beams that have held the weight of your shop for generations. The glow catches the lacquer on the mortar, the faint crack that has long been a souvenir of a fire scare, and it makes the surface glint like a quiet promise. Outside, the street hums with the low murmur of carts returning to the market, their wheels turning over the same uneven stones that have felt the tread of samurai, merchants, and children alike. You feel the day's heat settle into the plaster walls, a gentle pressure that seems to coax the lingering steam from the kamado into a soft sigh. In this light, the shop feels both a sanctuary and a stage, each object playing its part in a ritual that has been repeated countless times. Yet never quite the same. A small group of customers remains, their presence a quiet echo of the morning's bustle. The first is an elderly widow, her hair bound in a simple knot, her kimono faded to the color of old tea leaves. She moves with the careful deliberateness of someone who has learned to measure each step, as if the floor itself might betray a misstep. She approaches the low table where you have set aside a few pieces of mochi, each one still warm enough to leave a faint imprint on the palm of her hand. Her eyes linger on the corner of the shop where a weather-worn scroll hangs, its paper yellowed by years of sunlight and the occasional draft. The scroll bears the shogunate's fire prevention regulations, the same edicts that were issued after the devastating blaze of 1657, a reminder that even in peace the city must keep a watchful eye on its own flame. You watch her fingers trace the faded characters, the way the ink has bled slightly at the edges, and you feel a quiet kinship with the countless bakers who have read those words and adjusted their work accordingly. Beside her, a child clutches a wooden toy shaped like a koi, its lacquered surface polished to a sheen that catches the light. The child's eyes are bright, darting from the mochi to the toy and back again, as if the fish might somehow leap from the wood into the steaming broth of the kitchen. There is a subtle irony in the way the child's imagination swims against the very real constraints of the shop. The koi can never truly glide through the air, just as the shop's doors cannot open to the river's flow. Yet the child's smile is sincere, and the simple act of offering a piece of mochi feels like a small ceremony. A bridge between generations that spans the gap between the solemnity of the widow's festival preparations and the carefree wonder of youth. You serve them with a gentle bow, the motion practiced and unhurried. Remembering the advice of your mentor, the baker who taught you to treat each patron as if they were the shogun himself. Humility steadies the heart, he had said, his voice low and steady as the rhythm of the pestle against the mortar. The widow nods, a faint smile touching the corners of her mouth, and you notice the way the light catches the delicate pattern on her obi, a pattern that, while modest, hints at a once lavish past now softened by time. The child, meanwhile, giggles softly as he bites into the mochi, the texture yielding under his teeth with a gentle chew that seems to echo the soft thud of the pestle you used earlier. In that moment, the shop feels like a microcosm of Edo itself, a place where the weight of tradition rests beside the lightness of everyday joy. The afternoon wanes, and the market outside begins to thin. The clatter of fish carts recedes, replaced by the occasional creak of a wooden gate and the distant toll of a temple bell marking the hour. You turn your attention to the remnants of the day's work, the tools that have been your companions through countless mornings. The kamado, still warm from the night's fire, sits in the corner, its clay walls holding the faint orange of embers that have long since died down. You lift the small water bucket that the shogunate's fire prevention laws require you to keep within reach, its metal surface cool to the touch, and you pour a thin stream of water over the ashes, watching the steam rise in a thin veil that mingles with the lingering incense. The ritual is almost meditative, a reminder that vigilance against fire is as much a part of your craft as the grinding of rice or the pounding of mochi. You sweep the tatami mats with a soft bamboo broom, the bristles whispering against the woven rush as they gather the fine dust that has settled from the day's activity. The motion is slow, each stroke a quiet exhalation, and you feel the rhythm of the broom echo the cadence of the pestle you have wielded for years. The dust, light as the breath of the wind, settles into the corners of the room where it will be brushed away tomorrow, just as the day's worries will be set aside with the night. The wooden beams, now bathed in the soft amber of the setting sun, seem to exhale a sigh of relief, their joints creaking gently as if acknowledging the end of another day's labor. You gather the remaining sack of rice flour, its contents still warm from the cellar's coolness, and seal it with a clean cloth, tucking the edge under the lid to keep out the damp that can spoil the fine powder. The cloth, a simple piece of linen, bears the faint imprint of the hands that have folded it countless times, each crease a silent record of the countless batches of mochi that have passed through your shop. You place the sack on a low shelf, its weight a quiet reminder of the sustenance you provide to the city's inhabitants, from samurai to silk-weaving women, each of whom depends on the humble grain for their daily fare outside. The lantern hanging by the entrance flickers, its oil lamp casting a wavering light that dances across the paper doors. The shadows it creates crawl along the street in a slow, deliberate manner, as if they, too, are weary from the day's work. The night watchman's bells begin their evening lullaby, a soft, resonant chime that drifts through the alleys and reaches the shop's eaves. The sound is neither urgent nor mournful. It is a gentle reminder that the city is still alive, its pulse steady, its rhythm unhurried. You listen to the bells, allowing their cadence to settle into your own breathing, each toll a soft exhale that matches the rise and fall of your chest. You settle onto a low stool near the hearth, the wood cool beneath you, and pour a cup of barley tea from a simple earthenware bowl. The tea's amber hue catches the lantern's light, and the steam rises in thin ribbons that curl and disappear into the air. You bring the cup to your lips, the earthy flavor grounding you, its warmth spreading through your throat and into your core. The taste is modest, unadorned, much like the kimono you wear, a muted hue that complies with the shogunate's sumptuary edicts, a garment that keeps you both modest and comfortable. As you sip, you feel the day's gentle fatigue settle into your bones, a pleasant heaviness that does not press but simply rests. Your gaze drifts to the scroll on the wall once more, the characters now softened by the dimming light. You trace the ink with your thumb, feeling the slight roughness where the brush had pressed into the paper. The regulations it contains are not merely rules. They are a testament to the city's collective memory, a reminder that each baker, each merchant, each resident bears a share of responsibility for the safety of Edo. The irony is quiet, almost invisible. The very edicts that limit the flamboyance of your kimono also protect the humble shop where you knead rice into sustenance. In the soft glow of the lantern, the scroll seems to breathe, its words a living part of the space you inhabit. The night deepens, and the lantern's flame flickers lower, its light growing softer, as if the room itself is preparing for rest. You set the empty tea bowl aside, its surface now speckled with a faint glaze from the tea's tannins, and you straighten the bamboo mat that lies beneath your feet. The shop, now quiet, holds a stillness that feels almost reverent, as if the walls themselves are listening to the quiet heartbeat of the city beyond. The distant call of a night trader is muffled by the thick paper walls, the sound reduced to a faint echo that fades into the night you rise. Stretch your arms slowly, feeling the muscles in your shoulders loosen, the tension of the day releasing like steam from a pot. You walk to the sliding doors, your steps soft on the tatami, and pull them shut, the shoji panels sliding with a whisper that blends with the night's own sigh. The lock clicks gently, a sound that seals the shop's world from the street, yet also marks the transition from activity to contemplation. You glance once more at the lantern, now a dim ember, and you allow the darkness to drape over the wooden beams, the shadows merging with the night outside. Finally, you settle onto a futon near the hearth, the thin mattress cool against your back, the faint crackle of the dying embers a low, steady chorus. Your breath slows, matching the rhythm of the city's night watchmen as their bells fade into the distance. In the quiet, you feel the day's work settle into the fabric of your being, each task a thread woven into the larger tapestry of Edo's endless cycle of rice, fire, and quiet dedication. The night embraces you, steady and serene, and you drift towards sleep. The world outside holds. The moon hangs low over Edo, a thin silver disk that seems to have been drawn from the same ink that once marked the shogunate's edicts. Its pale light spills across the Sumida River, catching the gentle ripples that have settled after the day's traffic of timber barges and fishermen's boats. The water, now still, mirrors the sky's quiet, as if the river itself is listening to the city's sigh. You stand in the doorway of your shop, the sliding shoji panels already latched, the bamboo latches clicking softly against the paper screens. The night watchmen have finished their final rounds. Their lanterns are being lowered one by one, each small flame dimming like a firefly that has decided it has had enough of the night. The sound of their wooden clappers fades into the distance, leaving only the faint rustle of their sandals on the stone streets, a reminder that even the most vigilant must eventually rest. Your kimono, a modest indigo woven from hemp, rests against your skin, its muted hue a quiet compliance with the shogunate's sumptuary laws that keep the city's colors as restrained as a monk's robes. The fabric feels slightly rough where the hem has frayed, a small rebellion against the strictness of the law that you have learned to accept with a dry smile. After all, a splash of bright color would only attract the attention of the fire watchmen, and they have a habit of mistaking enthusiasm for recklessness. The tiny bell clipped to your belt sways gently with each breath, its soft jingle a comforting metronome that marks the passage of time without demanding applause. You listen to its tone, a faint reminder that safety has been tended to, that the regulations born from the great fire of Meraki still echo in the rhythm of your daily life. The incense you lit earlier still lingers in the air, a faint perfume of sandalwood and dried camphor that curls lazily around the low wooden beams. It has settled into the cracks of the paper doors, into the woven tatami mats, and into the very pores of the shop's walls. The scent is neither overpowering nor absent. It is the kind of presence that feels like a quiet companion, a subtle hand on the shoulder that does not intrude. You inhale slowly, feeling the cool night air mingle with the warm, lingering aroma, and notice how the smoke has taken on a silvery sheen under the moonlight, as if the very breath of the city has been dusted with ash. The incense, like the moon, is a reminder that rituals endure long after the people who began them have faded into memory. You turn your gaze toward the kamado, the clay oven that has been the heart of your work for as long as you can remember. Its stone floor still holds a faint orange glow, the remnants of the fire that coaxed the rice flour into pliable dough earlier in the morning. The embers have settled into a soft, steady ember, their heat barely perceptible, but enough to keep the air around the oven warm, a gentle contrast to the chill that seeps through the shoji. You reach for the small water bucket that the shogunate requires every baker to keep within arm's reach, a quiet acknowledgement of the ever-present risk that a single spark could turn a modest shop into a blaze that would be recorded in the annals of the city's tragedies. The bucket, made of lacquered wood, feels cool to the touch, its surface worn smooth by countless refills. You dip your fingers in, feeling the water's clarity, and let a few droplets fall onto the ember, listening to the soft sizzle that follows, a tiny, controlled reminder of the balance between fire and water that defines your craft. The wooden floor beneath your feet creaks ever so slightly as you shift your weight, each sound settling into the night like a lullaby. The boards have been walked upon by countless bakers, merchants, and wanderers, each leaving an imprint of their presence in the grain. You notice a faint knot where a previous apprentice once dropped a heavy sack of rice flour, a small imperfection that has become part of the shop's character. The knot catches the moonlight, creating a tiny, dark spot that seems to pulse with the rhythm of the night. You smile faintly, thinking of how even the most mundane flaws can become landmarks in a life lived in quiet dedication. A low wooden table stands near the back of the shop, its surface scarred by the repeated pounding of mochi and the occasional spill of tea. On it rests a small, lacquered box that once held the day's unsold mochi, now empty and waiting for the next batch. The box's lid is sealed with a thin strip of rice paper, a simple closure that has kept the delicate cake safe from the night's humidity. You run a thumb over the lacquer, feeling the faint crackle of age, and recall the moment when a careless spark had once threatened to ignite the paper, only to be smothered by a quick-thinking apprentice who tossed a damp cloth over the flame. The memory is a quiet testament to the community's vigilance, a reminder that the city's safety rests not only on laws, but on the attentiveness of ordinary hands outside. The city's sounds have softened to a murmur. The distant call of a night trader, selling dried fish and pickled vegetables, is muffled by the thick paper walls, its cadence barely audible over the gentle rustle of bamboo leaves swaying in the night breeze. The river's surface reflects the moon's glow, turning the water into a sheet of liquid silver that seems to flow without hurry. Occasionally, a lone crane glides across the river, its wings cutting through the stillness with a soft, measured beat. The crane's passage is a quiet reminder that life continues in its own measured pace, unaffected by the edicts that govern human activity. You watch its silhouette fade into the darkness, feeling a kinship with its unhurried journey. You move toward the low futon laid out near the hearth, its cotton filling still warm from the day's use. The futon's cover, a simple linen with a faint indigo pattern, feels soft against your skin as you settle onto it. The hearth, now reduced to a few dying embers, offers a final, gentle chorus of crackles that echo the day's earlier fire. You pull the futon's blanket over yourself, the fabric's weight a comforting pressure that grounds you in the present moment. The blanket's edges are frayed at the corners, a subtle sign of many nights spent in contemplation, each thread a story of patience and perseverance. You close your eyes, allowing the darkness to envelop you, the only illumination coming from the moon's silver wash through the shoji. Your breath settles into a slow, even rhythm, each inhale drawing in the cool night air tinged with incense and the faint scent of the river's mist. Each exhale releases a soft sigh that seems to merge with the distant murmur of the city, as if your own respiration is becoming part of Edo's collective heartbeat. You become aware of the subtle thrum of the wooden beams above, the way they settle and sigh under the weight of the night's silence. The sound is almost imperceptible, a low hum that reminds you of the countless times you have stood beneath these same beams, watching the world shift from day to night, from bustling market to quiet contemplation. In the quiet, your mind drifts back to the day's work, the grinding of rice, the shaping of dough, the rhythmic pounding that turned hard cakes into supple mochi. Each step was a small act of devotion, a quiet offering to the city that depends on the simple nourishment you provide. You recall the stoic faces of the samurai retainers, the bright eyes of the child clutching a wooden koi, the gentle smile of the widow who purchased mochi for the Aben festival. Their presence, fleeting as the night's breeze, left an imprint on the shop's atmosphere, a lingering warmth that persists even after they have departed. You feel a quiet gratitude for these encounters, for the way a humble rice cake can bridge worlds and create moments of shared humanity. The bell on your belt gives a soft, occasional chime as you shift, each note a reminder that the night watchman's duties have ended and the city's guardians have returned to their homes. Their lanterns, now extinguished, have left the streets in a gentle darkness that feels both protective and intimate. You think of the fire prevention scroll that hangs in the corner, its faded characters a testament to the countless bakers who have kept the city safe through careful attention. The scroll's edges are worn, the ink softened by time, yet its message remains clear. Vigilance is a quiet, constant act, not a dramatic proclamation. You run a finger over the characters, feeling the texture of the paper, and sense a connection that spans generations, a lineage of hands that have tended flame and flower with equal care outside. The moon continues its slow journey across the sky, its light unhurried, indifferent to the affairs of men. The river below reflects its passage, a steady flow that carries away the remnants of the day's activity, leaving only the soft whisper of water against the banks. The city's rhythm has settled into a lull, the night watchman's bells now a distant memory, the market stalls empty, the streets quiet. In this stillness you find a sense of completeness, a feeling that the day's labor has been honored by the night's peace. The world seems to hold its breath, as if waiting for the next sunrise to begin the cycle anew. You sit a moment longer, allowing the warmth of the hearth to fade gradually, feeling the coolness of the night seep into your bones. The incense's scent has become a faint veil, the moon's silver light a soft blanket over the shop's interior. Your thoughts settle like the ash that has fallen into the corners of the kamado, quiet and unmoving. You recognize the steady cadence of your own heartbeat, matching the city's calm, and understand that this rhythm is the thread that weaves together the countless moments of work, rest, and reflection that define your life in Edo. With a final, gentle exhale, you close your eyes fully, surrendering to the darkness that now envelops the room. The night embraces you, steady and serene, and you drift towards sleep, knowing that when the dawn returns, the cycle of rice, fire, and quiet dedication will begin anew. The night holds you